completely naive to the fact that Stanford was, doing this with his daughter, but with her daughter.
Right. Was there a dad? Because I feel like if there was a dad, Stanford would be dead.
Yeah.
Already.
He was, her dad was dead, so that would explain that.
Okay.
So when Stanford returned from Europe, he apparently confronted Barrymore about his intentions towards Evelyn. Now, Barrymore supposedly proposed to Evelyn in front of her mother and Stanford, but she turned him down. Probably worst decision she ever made. I don't know, maybe not. He turned out to be a raging alcoholic, so you just can't get a good man in the early 1900s. What is the deal? So I read that this time that in an effort to keep her away from him, she was enrolled in boarding school in New Jersey. But this seems strange to me because, let's be honest, that ship has sailed. I mean, boarding school for her at 17, 18 now? No.
Because don't they go away when they're younger than that?
Yeah, typically, yeah, they do. Sure. So this is the summer of 1902. Now, later that autumn, they say that Evelyn's affair with Stanford officially ended, but he was still very much in her life. During this time, Evelyn was linked with a polo player named James Montgomery Waterbury.
Oh.
And also...
Good name.
Yeah, I know, right? He was known
Posh name.
Monty. I mean,
Of course he was.
Exactly. So, and she was also seeing a young magazine publisher named Robert J. Collier.
Collier's.
Right,
oh.
Yeah. So she was seeing
she has lots of, So why does she
men.
need this old guy with the crazy mustache that covers his face?
His entire face. I'm assuming that he's still footing some of the bills here. But yeah, I mean, that if she's supposedly starring in other plays and seeing other men who are equally wealthy, that's a really good question. It's kind of a bizarre, I have a feeling it's some kind of bizarre psychological something in there. I mean, he kind of did set himself up as a father figure, as sick as that sounds. So, yeah, I don't know. Around the same time, she would also begin seeing a man who would come to change her life irrevocably, and his name was Harry Kendall Fall. Now, Fall was the son of a Pittsburgh railroad and coal magnate named William Fall and his second wife, Mary. There were a total of 11 children in the family, and unfortunately for Harry, his mother, Mary, had a history of mental illness in her family. She was actually known for being very volatile and sometimes abusive to the servants. Lovely traits there. Mm-hmm. Harry had a multitude of issues starting in childhood. He suffered from temper tantrums and insomnia and was known for indulging in baby talk.
So now that, gross, he's not the only one that did. Birdie, somebody else was a baby talker as well. And
oh, shoot.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is, now that I know that she had so many of these other gentlemen callers, it kind of surprises me, knowing the little I know about Thaw, that's who she would end up with.
Right.
Unless it's like a damaged individual situation where...
Right.
You need...
I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll kind of get into that. I think she definitely had the abused woman thing going on. Yeah. Yeah. So, Thaw had... as I said, it was known for indulging in baby talk, which is something that he did even into his adult years. Good times. As he grew older, he frequently threw heavy objects at the servants and thought it was funny. And he was eventually expelled from school for inappropriate behavior.
Oh.
Speaking of school, he attended Harvard, where he indulged in gambling, cockfighting, and skirt chasing. All the big ones. He apparently would light $100 bills as cigars, but then also would chase a cab down the street with a shotgun because he was shortchanged 10 cents. So,
wow.
He was eventually ejected from Harvard for immoral practices. So in response, Harry's father curbed his monthly allowance to $2,500 a month.
Oh my gosh, that's just not enough.
Because, that'll show him.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it was before.
I know, right?
And let's remember that, average worker probably made about $500 a year.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's getting $2,500 a month. So now, freed from school, Harry spent a lot of time in New York attempting to break into the social upper crust. He tried to buy memberships to the Metropolitan Club, the Century Club, the Knickerbocker Club, because that was basically where all the movers and shakers, they were members of these clubs.
Yeah.
But all his applications were rejected. When he was finally admitted to the Union League Club, he was eventually ejected for riding a horse up the steps and into the foyer.
That sounds so fun.
I know. But this is also when Harry first developed an obsession with Stanford White. White, of course, was extremely well regarded despite his rather salacious personal life, and he held a lot of power in town because he knew all the important people. Probably because he designed something for most everyone that mattered, so
exactly.
That's how he got to be in the in crowd.
Right.
Harry somehow became convinced that Stanford White had it in for him and that he was blocking his memberships to these clubs. Delusional!
Yeah.
The situation was further exacerbated when a disgruntled showgirl that Thal had publicly insulted ended up messing up his little social party, attempt at social.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm saying. Oh, I am sick yet again, so I'm high on cold medicine.
Oh, no.
He was throwing a party and invited many of showgirls and actresses that he knew.
Okay.
And of course, were also the types of women that White frequented.
Yeah.
So this disgruntled showgirl sabotaged the party by telling all the actresses that the party had been moved to the Tower Room at Madison Square Garden.
Of course it had.
And so Thal thought that, White was behind all that, and he was furious. Of course, I'm sure that his frequent use of cocaine and morphine didn't help the situation. He would often speedball the two drugs together.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, how do you not kill yourself doing that sort of thing?
Indeed. Huh.
As we learned with Frank Lloyd Wright's second wife, the morphine will make you do crazy things. So when Harry was 22, his father died, leaving him a fortune of $3 million.
Oh, man.
I think there was like a total of $44 million when he died. So it was split up between his wife and 11 kids.
Huh.
His mother, at that point, increased his monthly allowance to $8,000 a month, which he received for the next 18 years. His mother and a whole list of lawyers were that frequently had to use this money to keep Harry's exploits out of the papers. Some of Harry's more sadistic exploits included restraining a hotel bellboy naked in a bathtub and beating him with a whip.
Oh.
That's because normal people do that, right? I can't.
These stories.
I know. It's
Oh, man.
That's when I watch really crazy, like, historical dramas on TV, and they make up all this stuff, and I'm like, you don't have to.
No.
This stuff is
They
totally
don't.
there.
They don't have to make it up. And
Europe.
the truth is usually
Stranger than
stranger.
fiction.
Yeah.
Right. So Harry then moved on to Europe and frittered away his time visiting bordellos and hosting lavish parties where the female attendees would receive expensive jewelry as party favors. The less fortunate women at the bordellos often experienced his sexual sadism, which included restraints and beatings.
Yeah.
Harry returned to New York and introduced himself to Evelyn Nesbit after seeing her in a production called The Wild Rose.
Was she the Wild Rose?
I don't know.
Probably.
He actually attended over 40 performances.
Wait, just to see her?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Before he introduced himself as Mr. Monroe.
Why would he even need to fake it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he showered her with gifts for months before finally revealing to her that he was, quote, Harry Kendall Thaw of Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Pause for dramatic
effect. And she's
effect.
so impressed.
Yes.
She's like, who? What?
Yeah.
Did she know who he was, though? Because he was kind of a big deal. Or his family.
It was probably a big deal in
there's
Pittsburgh.
so many important...
right.
There's so many.
He's a big deal in Pittsburgh, but not in New York. Right, yeah. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure she felt the same way about him that we do about him.
Yeah.
Even though they had never met at this point, Stanford knew about Harry Thaw.
Oh.
He had heard about his madcap escapades and probably about his more heinous acts as well. In fact, Harry had already earned the nickname Mad Harry Thaw. So I think that generally...
Your reputation precedes you, sir.
Yeah. And that's generally your sign when deciding to date someone. If their nickname contains the word mad, no.
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
Don't do it, girl. Don't do it. So around this time, Evelyn was admitted to a hospital for an appendicitis. She had had an emergency appendectomy.
Okay.
But some people believe that she was actually having an abortion.
Wait, why? That's not...
Because women are not allowed to have an appendicitis.
Okay.
People said they thought the baby was John Barrymore's.
Oh. Wait, do we know it wasn't?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the girl wasn't keeping it with one guy. So, I mean,
right.
It could have been anybody's if she was pregnant.
Sure.
I mean, it could have been Stanford's for all we know. And considering he had a hand kind of in this, you know. So, this could have been but like, this kind of speculation probably occurred only after what happens a couple years later because of her reputation as a result of that. Stanford warned Evelyn of Thal's reputation and even tried to keep them apart because Thal, of course, was visiting her in the hospital. So he actually had Evelyn move to a sanitarium in upstate New York for her recovery. But
White did.
Yeah. Oh. But Thal still managed to find a way to visit her there, and their relationship continued to develop. In fact, he suggested that he take her and Mrs. Nesbit to Europe. Evelyn could continue to recover her health and see the sights. Plus, she would be taken away from Stanford's influence. How convenient. Mm-hmm. So the three of them embarked for Europe with Harry, with Harry playing the tour guide. He escalated their travel pace, leaving both Evelyn and her mother exhausted.
Europe sounds great, but a boat is not somewhere I would want to be after having an appendectomy.
No.
But they'd probably be in first class and she'd be taken care of. And
right. That. They get to Europe, and Harry is basically pushing them around lots of places, keeping them busy. And finally, Evelyn and her mother are so exhausted that they begin to fight a lot. And she wants to go home, but Harry says, "Hey, Evelyn, let's leave her here in London, and we'll take off for Paris." Oh. So,
sure.
By this time, Thal was pressuring Evelyn to become his wife, to which she refused. But I'm assuming that's probably more like she was just putting him off.
Right.
Because you don't tell someone like him,
no.
Yeah. He's just too volatile. So, I'm certain that she probably did something to keep him at bay while not, angering him. Mm-hmm. But this is when Thal's obsession began to come out. After a night of plying Evelyn with champagne, he managed to extract the whole sordid story of her seduction by Stanford White. Mm-hmm. Harry was somewhat gratified by this story once Evelyn finally confided in him. And I'm assuming that at this point he was just like, I knew it, Stanford White's a pervert. So they continued their way through France, where their itinerary was focused on sites associated with virgin women.
Oh.
When they stopped at a cathedral associated with Joan of Arc, he reportedly wrote in a visitor's book, quote, "She would not have been a virgin if Stanford White had been around."
Oh, my.
Yes. This is where the story gets a little bit bizarre. Not that it wasn't already.
I was going to say.
Thal rented a castle and took Nesbit there to stay. Once there, he sequestered the servants in one part of the house and kept Evelyn in the other. So she was basically his prisoner.
Oh.
During a 2-week period, he repeatedly sexually assaulted her and beat her with a whip on several occasions.
Oh, my gosh.
Of course, after he did all these horrific things, he would apologize profusely and then act as if it never happened.
Right.
So that's where, that kind of classic abused woman syndrome going on here.
Oh, man. She was more of a victim than I thought.
That's from our modern eyes, we look at the situation like that, and I know there's two different things you can say. A, girl, why are you so stupid? And B, we can't even begin to understand the kind of pressure. When you're...
And it doesn't make him less of a criminal, whether she should have said no or...
Exactly.
He's still a horrible person.
Horrible man, and she managed to find her way to both of them. So after returning to the United States, Thal continued to pressure Evelyn to marry him. Mm-hmm. In total, from start to finish, she managed to hold him off for 4 years. Well, I don't know. I think more like 3 years. They met in 1902.
Okay.
So finally, in 1905, she consented to marry him.
After all of that.
Yeah. Reports indicate that she wanted financial stability, and so she decided that she could put up with his bizarre behavior. And of course, as I said, marrying that kind of person now makes us want to scream, why? No. So they were married on April 4th, 1905, with Evelyn wearing a wedding dress that Harry picked out. Oh. Of course. So the newlyweds returned to Pittsburgh and lived in the family home, which was called Lyndhurst. Evelyn clearly thought that she would have some independence and maybe a little bit of glamour, because surely they would travel and entertain people. Nope. Harry's mother, Mary, lived with them and ruled the household with a sanctimonious iron fist. So nothing like having a mean mother-in-law. Hanging around. But of course, while this is going on, Harry's behavior began to deteriorate. He became obsessed with exposing Stanford White as a degenerate, and so he began corresponding with Anthony Comstock. We could probably do a whole episode on that man, but we won't.
Okay.
Because, suffice to say, he was obsessed with suppressing all vice in America. And at one point in time, he was the postmaster of the United States, and he made it illegal to send any written material considered